Hello fellow Zooba kings and queens, welcome to Core Royal. In today's video, your entertainer Zooba King shall be enlightening your royal minds on how to play the character Jade. Yo, what's happening guys? Zooba King here, and in today's video I'm going to be explaining exactly how to play the character Jade. This was suggested in the comments by multiple people, and I just want to thank those people. I want to let everyone know that if you have a video idea, feel free to share it. No ideas are bad ideas. Except bad ideas, of course. Those are bad. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump right in. So, a few months back, Jade used to be like, super overpowered. Kinda like how Betsy is now. Pretty much, if you saw a Jade, you were in for a rough time. However, recently they did nerf her health points, and it's made her a lot more manageable. However, to those playing her, it kind of came as a sad shock. But before you just ignore Jade completely, because she's doesn't have as high health anymore, I want to let you know she's still playable and very, very good. Just not as overpowered and game breaking. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start with step 1. Alright guys, so for step 1, you're going to want to... Alright, so step 1 to be playing Jade is going to be hit and run. Hit and run is exactly what it sounds like. You're basically going to be using her brisk whiskers to gain attack ground on your opponents, claw them, hit them with your bomb, shotgun, or spear, and get the heck out of there. This was already a common theme with Jade, however, with her health being nerfed, I cannot stress this point enough. The less damage you take, the better. So when running at someone, make sure to only use 1 or 2 weapons, rather than sticking around to unload all 3. This will usually end up with you taking damage. So basically, you're going to use Brisk Whiskers to get close to your opponent, hit them with your claws on 1 or 2 other weapons, and then escape with Brisk Whiskers. All of this very, very fast and very technical. But with practice will make you 10 times more lethal while playing Jade. Now for step 2. Step 2 is going to be very similar to step 1, but it's more about the approachment part. How do you easily gain ground on your opponents without getting knocked back? Well, this requires a few things. A plan, a technique, and proper placement of your character. Let's start with a plan. Before you attack someone with a Jade, you do need a plan. Before you activate Brisk Whiskers, you need to have the entire attack mapped out in your head. That way you can focus on adapting to random mutations or flaws that happen in the heat of the battle, and making sure to get your technique perfect. Okay, next, you need that proper technique. You need to know the technique. Now, the optimal technique that I've found for approaching a character that has higher range than you, like let's say a Fuzzy, a Pepper, a Milo, anyone that has a bow or can hurt you before you can hurt them. The technique I like to use for that is called the jiggle. Yes, it's a dumb name, but it's the first thing I thought of, and I feel like it encompasses it. This is similar to the pattern I use to evade snipers while using Earl. You can find that in my How to Play Earl video. However, I would say that this is at a much faster pace, and you have to do it a lot more correct, because Earl can use his claw and his spear, so you can make up for mess-ups. Whereas with Jade, you don't really have that room for error. Basically, what you're going to want to do is once Brisk Whiskers is activated, you simply create a zigzag pattern while you run, and it confuses your opponents and throws off your aim. Now, in this case, in this video, it's incredibly embarrassing. This Nix is ticking me off, laughing at me, and I don't know, I got into my head, guys. That Nix, they play the mental game really well, and it's kind of embarrassing. But anyway, the zigzag pattern is difficult to perfect, but it should yield positive results. The last little third in step 2 is gonna be proper placement. Now this is not a huge issue, but it kind of falls under planning, kind of the first thing I talked about. Basically, if your opponent has an advantage in the current terrain, like a Henry in a bush, or a Pepper in a bush, or just anything similar to that, like they have the advantage, or they're near water, like a Frank has advantage in water. Just overall, if they have that advantage, you don't really want to let them have that, So you're just going to want to find a way to tempt them out of their spot, or you may even need to retreat. Okay guys, so now for the final step, step 3. This is very nitpicky, but it has its practical applications. Basically, when you get near someone, Jade's claws get activated. However, oftentimes you'll use a weapon at that same time. So what ends up happening is that the game remembers the weapon you used, then activates the claws, then after the claws finish, the game then uses the weapon. So if you aren't careful, you will miss the weapon completely. The remedy I've come up for this is simple. Just get used to the range of her claws, and use the weapons a little bit before you know the claws will trigger. Or use the weapons after. The only problem with using it after is, if you're fighting a character that can get away easily, then you may miss an opportunity to damage them. Alright guys, so that's really all I have for strategy. Let's move on to items and attributes. Fortunately, I would label Jade as a hybrid character, so she's very playable without too much of a coin investment, and can be played with a few items. So this is really, really nice. So the items that I kind of recommend are going to be Adrenaline Shot. This is because of her low hit points it's kind of new. And because everything about Jade is fast and technical, so you don't really often have time to use medkits. Next, I recommend Jungle Shoes. This makes hit and runs with Brisk Whiskers a lot easier, and oftentimes you land very, very powerful shots. Thirdly, I recommend Vampire Fangs over Bandage because she deals more damage than she has health. I spoke on this in the Tony video if you're confused about that. If you have the fourth item, I recommend probably Holy Sandals or Cluster Bomb, or the off chance you have inflatable muscles. That's just really always a good idea, inflatable muscles. I myself really wish I had inflatable muscles on more of my characters, make some better gameplay. As far as the other items, I just don't recommend very many of them for Jade, because they don't really seem to fit her playstyle. As always, I would suggest using Defibrillator, and usually I swap Vampire Fangs out for that, because you can usually swap out healing items with Defibrillator, because, Defibrillator's kind of like a whole new life. As for attributes, I suggest timing her active abilities cooldown and trying to match the weapon's cooldown, because you don't really need a reason to attack other than Brisk Whiskers, so if the cooldowns are the same, it's pretty solid. As for everything else, range, don't know why I had radius on my bomb, switching that to range. Now, as far as I'm concerned, everything just needs range because it makes hit and runs so much easier because of that distance maintained. It's just smarter, solid, better strategy because you don't have to get close to people. That's all I really have for today, guys. Let me know if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful. Also, one more thing. Sadly, I will not be posting until Monday. Same time as usual, but I will not be posting until Monday. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, and thank you for understanding. As always, have an outstanding day, and I will see you in the zoo.